Hello, sweet friends, and welcome. This is Gina, and you are at the Rebookery channel. I know it has been so long since I've done a video. I just want to tell you guys thank you for being patient. I have been doing videos. I've been doing videos every day for the past 5 months, but they've been science videos for 8th graders. So my capacity for video making has kind of been it's kind of been all taken up. But over this break, I thought it would be great for me to try to share some of the things that I've been doing in my journals. So this is a journal that I made last year. It was actually a year ago. And it was a journal that just has a mix of different papers, art papers, fabric pages, scrap paper, paper bags. And I just really had kind of used it for just experimenting with different mediums like my oil pastels and paints, inks, all kinds of, just when I want to try something out and I just want to see how it looks on a piece of paper. So not really a lot of finished spreads. But as this year has evolved, I've realized that a lot of these spreads are finished. And so, I don't know, I've been inspired to kind of keep going and see what else I can come up with in this journal. So what I'm going to do today is walk you through the anatomy of how I would sit down and do an entire journal spread in one setting. And I don't typically do that. That's very rare for me to do something like that. But I have been doing it here lately, and I've discovered that I have like a process. So the first thing I do is I start off with some inspiration, usually a color inspiration. And so this little book that I have right here, it's a little gift book. I'm going to use the colors from this book as my inspiration. So green will be my main color, and then I'm going to pull in, I'm going to actually use acrylic paints, and so just craft paints, and there's maybe some name brand paints there, but nothing fancy. I'm just going to use those guys. I pulled all of my colors, and now what I need to do is find the page that I want to work on. And I know I want this to be a 2-page spread, so I'm just looking for the right one. Now I'm going to settle on this. On the right hand side, I just did like some notes and things like that. And I've already gessoed over that with clear gesso. So I'm going to gesso over the left hand side because it is just raw paper. And I kind of want it all to have the same surface. And so I'm using I think it's Liquitex clear gesso. It's got a lot of grit to it. A lot of people don't like it. I love it. I love the grit. And so now I'm just going to lay down my base paint. And so green is going to be my main color here. And so what I'm going to do is just plop down some drops of paint. And I'm going to use different shades and hues of green. So I started off with my lightest, and then I'm going to end up with my darkest. And now I'm just going to go in with I have a flat brush, and I'm just going to spread the paint around, but I'm going to be really careful not to mix the paint. I don't want to blend all of this. I just want to spread the paint around the page. And I don't want to come up with one color. I want to see all the separate colors that I applied on my paper, if that makes any sense. So once I start to see that the colors are going all into, like one color, I know that I need to stop. And this is a really hard thing for me because I like to overdo things. And so having the willpower, I guess, to hold back, that's really kind of been an exercise in patience for me because I just want to keep going. I just want to keep blending it and stuff. And I've had to really be focusing on, okay, just do it until you get the color down and then stop before it goes too far. So I'm going to use, this is a piece of deli paper, but you can use any kind of paper. I'm going to use a top piece of paper to put over my, my page here every time I do a layer. And what that does is it just kind of flattens out the page, kind of dries the paint a little bit, takes off any excess paint, and as the paint gets tackier and tackier, I will start to be able to pull it up with my deli paper, and then it exposes the page underneath, the original paper. So now I'm going to go and pull my palette of colors that I'm going to use, because I just put down my background. Now I'm going to use my accent colors. And so again, pulling from those paints that I chose, and I'm going to use my book again as the inspiration. Just going to put my paints, little drops. I don't need a lot. And there's the color I'm kind of excited about. It's like a metallic blue. I got it at a thrift shop, so I don't even know if it's going to work, but we'll see. I just put little drops of paint, and then I always put white in the center, because one of the things I've realized is that the more you add light and dark, the more your paint will, I guess it makes your eyes move. You'll see the light, you'll see the dark, and it really gives you different almost different moods of the paint. So again, this is going to be an exercise in restraint, because I'm not trying to blend my paints so that it's all one color. I want each one of those colors to stay separate. It's almost like I'm layering them. Now, layering wet paint is really hard, because you can overwork it and it becomes one new color really quickly. And so you can see I do that, and then once I get it to a place where I'm like, ooh, I overdid that, I just go back in either with a dark color or I go back in with that white, and I'm not like brushing it on, I'm dabbing it on, barely touching the page, just enough so that the paint is like stuck to the page, and then I lift my brush off really quickly. And so you kind of have to decide where you want to put your accents. I like to put my accents, you know, like in almost like it's like a map of, I want your eye to go from here to here to here to here to here. And I don't really have any thoughts about it as I'm doing it. I just kind of look for spaces where I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like a good place to put that. And again, this is total preference, and you figure it out. The more you do it, the more you figure out where you want to put your splotches of paint. Now I dried that layer. Now I'm going to go back in with the warm colors. So in my inspiration, there was some orange and some yellow. And so I'm going to put little dabs of orange and yellow with a little bit of some gold, some azo gold, and just kind of not put it on top of the cool colors that are already there, but kind of just put it next to or aside, kind of to complement those colors. And so the blue is going to work really well with that orange, because they're going to be, you know, they're going to be contrasting, and so that really adds interest. So here is some craft paint that I love. It is a neon craft paint. It's really thin, and you can see through it, and I love using this. It's great as an accent. And so I'm just going to go in and add this neon paint. And I think I got mine at Walmart. It's probably like, I don't know, $1 or something. They had yellow and green, and I'm using the orange, and then they also have a pink too. So I'm just going to go in and just kind of fill in little empty spaces with this neon paint. And then I want this paint to kind of be cloudy. So I'm going to spray it with water, kind of move it around a little bit, so you can see the stuff I had already put on, those have hard edges. But then this neon, I want it to kind of be blurry and, like I said, cloudy. So that's a great way to add interest to your page, is to have different outlines or different lines of how the paint is arranged. Some can be cloudy and blend in, and then some can have hard lines and make a definite, you know, a definite outline. So I'm just going to use up my heat gun here to kind of speed up the process. And then I'm going to put my deli paper over top of it. And so this is, I don't know, is this our third layer, fourth layer? I lost track. And really cool thing, in the end, we will end up with a piece of deli paper that has a lot of cool paint on it that we'll be able to tear up and use later on in different projects. Okay, so now for this layer. This is what I would consider highlights, and I don't really think highlights need to be bright or light, as the name implies. Sometimes you can use dark paint for highlights, and so I'm going to use a really deep purple, but I'm also going to use my white so that, again, I have different hues, different shades of that purple. And I'm just going to use marks with my, I have a small paintbrush that I'm just going to use. I'm just going to make messy little marks with my paintbrush. Again, I'm not trying to blend the paint. I'm just wanting to keep the colors separate. And so I'll just dab the paint onto the page and just kind of pick and choose where I want it to go. And I know it's going to look messy, and that's okay. Because this type of painting is messy. That's why I like it, because you can cover up mistakes and things like that. So I'm just going to keep adding the purple and fill in every once in a while with some of the white. Now, the paper that I have underneath the journal, that is just a big sheet of just some white paper, and I use it when I make journals. So I'll use this piece of paper as an underpaper for, I don't know, a week or two, depending on how much art I do. And then once it gets all full with color and paint and marks, I'll take it and rip it down and use it as pages for a journal. And the reason why I like to do that is because sometimes when you have a journal that has all blank pages, at least for me, it totally paralyzes me. And I don't know, white pages just freak me out. So when I make a journal and I have pages that already have paint and stuff on them, it's so freeing, and it makes me want to create. And I probably most of the time cover up the paint with new paint or paper or whatever, but it's just the fact that I think it has to do with afraid I'm going to mess up. And so when I see a page that already has marks on it, I'm like, oh, you can't mess that up because, you know, it's already got stuff on it. So that's something I like to do, is take that under paper and reuse it. Take the deli paper, tear it up, and use it in collage. And I like that deli paper because it's kind of translucent, so you can see some of the stuff underneath it. And it's really light and malleable. And so that and tissue paper, I love using those two things. Okay, so now we're going to put deli paper over this layer, and I'm about to the end of this stage. The last thing I want to do is I've got to add some black. Black petrifies me. Like I am terrified of using black, because that's the one thing that's the one color that when I use it, I could totally screw up my entire piece. I just haven't figured out how to use it the way I want it to be used. So this is a pencil that I'm using. Now I'm going to take water, because the water will activate the charcoal, and I don't want to activate all of it. And again, this is a lesson in restraint. Take a watercolor brush, because I want a brush that's going to hold a lot of water. And all I'm doing is just dabbing drops of water onto the pencils, okay? So I'm not going to dab on all of the pencil. It's not like I'm brushing. I'm not going to brush the water on, because if I brush the water on, then I blend all the black, I lose all the lines, and what I want to see is I want to see the super, super thin, faint lines, and then I want to see the dark lines of when it gets saturated with the water. I want to see that contrast, because that's what makes it interesting. So I don't want to wet all of my pencil. Now, used to be, and I say this used to be, like as in, you know, a month or two ago, I would just take a spray bottle and I would spray my page. But the problem is, even though that's fun, it would activate all of my charcoal. And that's not what I'm looking for in this page. What I'm looking for is, again, that contrast between The very, very faint lines that I'm putting on now, they're thin, they're faint, and then the more bold, the more dramatic lines of when I add the water. And so kind of going in and just kind of twisting it around in my fingers, picking up my paintbrush again and just dabbing drops of water onto some of the parts, not all of it. And then I leave the spots, I leave the black spots so that they'll dry. So I'll either use my heat gun or I'll just let it dry, you know, by sitting out. But what that does is that leaves like a watermark, and it gives you that watery, drippy look. And so again, totally being reserved and using all of my patience when I do this, because the old me would want to just take my paintbrush and just, you know, go over the whole page. And I'm going to kind of move my paper around a little bit, let some of the water drip around, and then go back in with a few more dry marks. And then once I've done that, I'm going to leave it alone for a while, because the next part I'm going to do is going to be, I'm going to go back in with paint, but I want all of this to be good and dry before I go and do that. So this is just part one. I'm going to do the next part of this, I'm going to do it in a separate video, and that will be the finishing steps. So that will be how I finish out this page. I hope you've gotten some inspiration. I hope you guys give this a try. Thank you so much for watching this. Be sure to catch the second part of this. I'll be posting that in the next couple of days. I hope you guys are healthy. I hope you guys are happy, and I hope you do something creative today. Have a great rest of the day, my friends. Bye.